Okay, thank you for waiting. I'm Jan2009 of the Center for International Studies, which is sponsoring this talk today, along with the program on human rights and justice. Before we begin, a few quick announcements. One is that we will have some time for questions at the end of Professor Chomsky's talk. And what we'll do is, at the end of the talk, we can line up on either side in front of the microphone, I think is the best way to do it. And we'll just go back and forth with questions, I hope, rather than statements or manifestos. Also, the Center is sponsoring a couple of talks that potentially of interest to this audience in the next month or so. One is coming on January 29th. I think late afternoon. You'll have to check our website for exact time and location. On refugees, a remarkable book assembled on refugees, refugee voices by the actress Mia Kirshner, and she will be here actually for an IAP activity for the next 2 weeks, starting next week, and we'll cap it off with a public talk. That's on the 29th. And then on the 19th of February, we will have Eyal Weizman, who is a Israeli architect and critic, social critic, who will be here, also a late afternoon lecture on February 19th. Again, location you can find on our website. Today I am introducing the man who needs no introduction, so I won't give him much of one except to say that we're really delighted that Noam Chomsky can join us today. Certainly one of the world's most important intellectuals and activists, and speaking today on a subject he knows well. So please help me in welcoming Noam Chomsky.
As you know, on Saturday, December 27th, the latest U.S.-Israeli attack on hopeless Palestinians was launched. It had been meticulously prepared. We know from the Israeli press that both aspects of the campaign had long been carefully prepared, both the military aspect and the propaganda aspect, learning from the lessons of the 2006 invasion of Lebanon, which it was argued was not planned well from a military point of view and was not advertised properly. So this time, both of those aspects were under control with extensive programs, and that means we can be reasonably confident that anything that's happening or that is said is purposeful. It's planned that way. Maybe not everything, but most of it. One thing that was planned carefully was the time of the launching of the war. It was carefully chosen. It was shortly before noon on Saturday, when children are returning from school and crowds are milling around in the streets of densely populated Gaza City. And it took only a few minutes to kill well over 200 people and wound around 700, which is an auspicious opening to the mass slaughter of defenseless civilians trapped in a tiny cage with nowhere to flee. That was Saturday, December 27th. Last Saturday, 2 weeks later, Israel barred humanitarian shipments to Gaza Strip because we have to, after all, honor the holy days. None of this is at all surprising. It's familiar. Just to mention one parallel, which is relevant. I'll come to it later. In June 1982, when Israel launched its U.S.-backed invasion of Lebanon, the first target attacked was Sabra and Shatila refugee camps, later to become famous because of a major massacre. The bombing hit the hospital, the Gaza hospital, killed more than 200 people. That was the opening day of the invasion, which killed maybe 15 to 20,000 people, destroyed much of southern Lebanon, large parts of Beirut. It was able to proceed as usual because of U.S. support, U.S. authorization, U.S. arms, diplomatic support, which included vetoing a series of Security Council resolutions calling for an end to the carnage. The aggression was undertaken, also as usual, and as conceded, in fact, to defend Israel, namely from the threat of a peaceful political settlement. That's contrary to much routine deceit in the United States, particularly, but it's all so well documented, it's hardly necessary to talk about it. All of this is normal, and it's not concealed by high Israeli officials. Just to give one example, 30 years ago, the chief of staff of the army, Mordechai Gur, pointed out that, quote him, "Since 1948, we have been fighting against a population that lives in villages and cities." Israel's major military analyst, Zev Schiff, summarized his remarks. He said, "The Israeli army has always struck civilian populations, purposely and consciously. The army," Gur said, "has never distinguished civilian from military targets, but has purposely attacked civilian targets." And the reasons were explained right at the same time by the distinguished statesman Abba Eban, considered a dove. He said there was a rational prospect, ultimately fulfilled, that affected populations would exert pressure for the cessation of hostilities, satisfying Israel's goals. Eban happened to be commenting on a speech by Menachem Begin, which presented a picture, Eban said, of an Israel wantonly inflicting every possible measure of death and anguish on civilian populations in a mood reminiscent of regimes which neither Mr. Begin nor I would dare to mention by name. Eban did not contest the facts. He criticized Begin for speaking about them so frankly, which could be harmful to the Israeli image. His own views, which I just quoted, could also be attributed to countries that we dare not mention by name. Well, as the latest U.S.-Israeli assault on Gaza began, a small boat, the Dignity, was traveling from Cyprus to Lebanon. There were doctors and human rights activists aboard, and they intended to violate Israel's criminal blockade and to bring supplies to the trapped population. The boat was intercepted far out at sea in international waters. The Israeli Navy rammed it without warning, severely damaged the boat. It managed to limp to a Lebanese harbor. Israel provided the routine lies, terrorists, etc., and claimed that the boat wasn't rammed. But unfortunately for the propaganda system, there were respected journalists on board, including CNN correspondent Carl Penhall, who reported, there were other Al Jazeera reporters, but Penhall is hard to dismiss, though he was dismissed. Also aboard was Cynthia McKinney, the former representative, a candidate, presidential candidate for the Green Party. She and other passengers verified Carl Penhall's account.